Hey, Love Your Life family, Crystal Holland here. Just want to jump on today. I am so excited to introduce to you another life coach. She refers to herself as a soul goal coach. Her name is Clare Williamson. We are having an excited conversation today about the necessity of coaching and mental health therapy, counseling, that we are all without excuse to get stuck in a season or a place in our life due to trauma, things that are out of our control. We know that there's been tons of stigma around therapy and so on and so forth, but I'm here to tell you that there are millions of people that are thriving because they took the gift of choice and they chose to love themselves. And so I really want to encourage you to, say, I'm kind of worth getting some love. And if that's getting a coach, a mental health therapist, getting sound counseling, you're worth it. And so I want to invite you over to the Loving Your Life podcast to jump on and get some wisdom nuggets from Claire and her journey, her story. She has a beautiful story. It will be a snapshot of her story, but get the nuggets and apply them to your life and begin to take the steps that you need to, whether it's reaching out to a coach, a mental health therapist, or a counselor, because you're worth it and this life is worth living. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Let's go. Hey, Love Your Life family. Welcome back to another Loving Your Life podcast. It is your sis, Crystal. I am back at you today with another discussion about loving your life. We have a special guest with us today, Miss Clare Williamson. I just want to thank you so much for coming on. She has a beautiful soul and a beautiful story. And I want to introduce her to my audience and give her the opportunity to share her story. So thank you so much, Clare, for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited because Clare is on the other side of the world. Can you tell us where you are from, Clare?
I'm in New Zealand. I'm from the UK, but living in New Zealand for the last 10 years, I think now. 10 years.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. I've never traveled outside of the U.S., so I'm looking forward to the opportunity to have that experience. So I'm going to live vicariously through you during our interview. So tell us a little bit about Clare. Who is Clare?
Yeah, so I'm a soul goal coach. I help what I call transitioning entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs who know there's something more for them. They feel that calling of what I call the soul goal, and I help them to biohack their emotions and leverage their personal story to create the success that they want, specifically the level of income that reflects the amount of impact that they want to create in the world, because I don't feel that it should be a sacrifice one to the other. And I'm also a mum. I have 3 children. My smallest one was only born 3 months ago.
Wow.
And I'm also, I call myself an author. I'm on my way to being a published author as well. I wrote a book called Life Through a Lens, which I'm really excited about.
That's incredible. Man, so just juggling it all. How do you manage and balance it all?
Staying present. I've learned in the last few years, especially on my spiritual journey, that the minute that we're into our survival brain, nothing happens. Nothing happens at all. And so I really focus on, staying connected to my soul brain, where the inspired action is, and just going with the flow as well, staying neutral to life. Life's going to happen as a mum of 3, right? So
absolutely.
That's pretty much that's how an organization, which I'm learning a lot more about since being in my business.
That's incredible. So when did you know you wanted to be a life coach?
So it's a funny story. I was pregnant with my second child and I was made redundant. So there was this just caving in my mind of, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Our house was paid for by 2 full-time salaries, and I just sort of put myself underneath the bed sheets and disappeared for about 2 weeks.
Wow.
And while I was under there, just literally despairing and wondering what I'd done, to create such bad luck in my life, this little light bulb went off. And I realized, like, I just literally pulled the bed sheets back and smiled and said, I hate my job. I actually hate my job, and I'm not entirely fulfilled in my life either. There has got to be opportunity in this. And it was like something came alive in my soul. The idea that I could, you know, be at home with this second daughter, because with my first daughter, I'd had to put her into childcare when she was 1, and I felt like I missed out on so much.
Okay.
And so I started to look for things to do as an entrepreneur, as you know, self-employment. And this is when I got started in network marketing, and it didn't work very well. So I had to take on an extra contract, and I started working as a sponsorship. I was sort of setting up sponsorships and sales for this big show in New Zealand called the Green Living Show. And one of the ladies that I connected with as a sponsor for the show, she had a life coaching training company. And we were sat having a coffee one day, and she was listening to me and asking me all these questions, as life coaches do. And she said, man, you'd be an amazing life coach. And I had to say to her, like, I have no idea what a life coach is. I kind of knew a little bit about Tony Robbins. My dad had been a massive personal development fan growing up, and he'd thrown these names around, Jim Rohn, but I hadn't really, you know, jumped on that bandwagon. And she said, I'm so sure that this is your path and that this would help you. I'd like to sponsor you onto my course. And so it is. Like that day was the day where I stepped into the thing that I realized really, really fast in that course that I wanted to do forever. In fact, I'm just getting full body kind of goosebumps now, just knowing like how aligned I felt sitting in those classes and really understanding what a life coach does and how to do it myself.
Wow. Was there any trepidation?
No. Only in the sense of it felt like a really big responsibility, because when you're training, you obviously you are coaching people and you're getting assessed on that, you know, on the way that you do things. And I from that moment felt that responsibility of, wow, you know, this can change people's lives. Do I have it in me to change people's lives?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's such an honor, you know, it's such a delicate place for people to invite you into. And so taking it very serious, and knowing that you have to do your own work in order to help others. So it's one of those work where I would say very fruitful, because it's constantly like revealing to you more and more about yourself and others, and just how big this world is and how amazing we are as human beings. And so it's like, wow, you know, if we're just willing to truly slow down and do the work. And that's really, I'd say from my lens, the biggest challenge, getting people to say, this is approachable work, that you can achieve this. And so that's incredible. What was the hardest part of your journey of becoming a coach?
Oh my gosh, what a question. You know, I really have thought into this, and I think just getting over myself. I came out of that course and I was so excited, and I spent weeks designing this beautiful, it was called Design Your Life. And I set up a web page, and I just got so excited about this launch. And I launched this program and I got one sale. And I tried and I got a great testimonial from this lady, but I just couldn't sell anymore. And I'm there like thinking to myself, well, how can I be this coach when I've got no idea how to make this business work? You know, like I don't know how to market myself. And so I actually started stepping out of coaching. I actually started getting my head back into the network marketing, and I actually took on a new network marketing product business and really got into that, because in the back of my mind, I was like, I can't be the coach that I want to be.
Okay.
Until 2018, and this is where the universe stepped back in, right, as she does. I actually got the opportunity to feature on a network marketing reality show. So this is when I went out to my first trip out to the USA. I got to go to Florida. I got to meet Hank Norman, who's Mel Robbins' media coach.
Right.
And yeah, and I got this experience of featuring on this show where they're really asking you, you know, what do you want? And I realized it wasn't network marketing. I realized, like, you know, I realized I had this powerful story. I realized that I could help people. I realized that I needed to find my voice, and that I needed to find my power, and I needed to stop giving that power away to everything outside of myself. You know, my financial excuses, you know, the circumstances in my life, the fact that I was a mum, all of this, you know, rubbish, BS that was just, it was just not true. And so walking out of that show, it was like I knew, I said the words and it made my voice shake. I want to be a globally acclaimed coach. I want to be recognized globally. You know, I want to help people all over the world.
Wow.
And, you know, it frightened me to death. And there's something in that, right? Wherever our fear is the greatest version of ourselves. And it's our job to go through that fear and take the learnings. What's making us afraid?
Yeah.
And so that really started the journey to realizing that the only thing holding me back from being that coach was myself and my belief systems, and the fact that I felt too small to make that sort of a difference. Which is not true, right? It's not true.
Right.
But I had to take away the layers of those untruths and really understand the trauma that had made me sort of shrink back to this frightened little girl every time I stood in front of any sort of success, any sort of potential success.
And so in that process, how did you stay focused?
Looking at my children, you know, there was a moment in the reality show and they asked me, you know, why are you doing this? And I always thought that it was about everybody else. I thought that it was the fact that, you know, I grew up with my mum, she has bipolar, and I never felt like I could fix her. And I think I came out of my childhood with this mission, like, well, if I can't fix you, I'm going to prove that I can fix everybody else. You know, like a fight.
Okay.
And I'd always invested that into the things that I was doing, saving the environment, saving other people, going into the life coaching. But as I stood in front of those cameras and they asked me those questions, that question, like, why are you doing this? I realized it was for my little girls.
Wow.
You know, I wanted to be the person. I wanted to step into my own potential, to show them that they can step into their own potential. I wanted to make my business work financially so that I could give them every single experience that would grow them into their own potential and let them have the best life. And yeah, so and it was almost giving myself permission that it was okay to live into that impact within my four walls first, whereas because I think my core value is impact, and it always felt like I should be doing that outside of my home. So
Wow.
looking at them and seeing them every single day, they have kept me accountable to what I set out to do.
They definitely do. And you have all daughters, right?
Yes. Yeah. I
And
tried.
so, yes. And it hits different, you know, when you're looking at these beautiful lives that your body has created, and all that you've endured, and the fruit that's been produced out of your story, and wanting to give them the very best. And so it's virtual high five to you, because it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, and our babies definitely are great motivators, and they make it very real. You know, this life, and we see the world, and it's like, you really don't have to go through that. And teaching them early on, these are the tools. Get them in your toolbox, and I'm here to come alongside you in this journey so that you can have a beautiful life in spite of the ugliness that we see in the world. It is very approachable. And so in this whole process, what are you most educated about? I'm sorry, not educated, passionate about in your field of work?
Yeah, it is stepping into your purpose. It is, you know, realizing that there is something etched into your DNA, a reason that you're here. It's like we're here to close loops. And I mean, just going back to your question, I see so much trauma. I see so much childhood trauma. I'm working with a business person who's in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they're struggling to get visible online. And it comes down to being the child that was told to be seen and not heard. You
Yeah.
know, told that they don't have a voice, or, you know, put down like the mental abuse, physical abuse that I've listened to the stories of. Like, it hurts my heart as a mum to know that there's just so much of that out there, right? And it's like, where you can't even feel bitter or angry or anything for the mums and the dads, because you know that they're in that place and that they did that because they've gone through something as well, right? So it's like,
Right.
where do we break the chain?
Right.
Break the chain right now. Right now, my children are not going to grow up abused physically, mentally. They
That's
are not going to abuse their own children. It's like, and I feel like it's like this ripple effect of just of drawing sand in the line. I'm healing myself. I'm healing myself so I can heal those before me, and I can heal those ahead of me as well. I'm breaking the chain. I'm closing this loop.
It's incredible. And to know that every individual that you have the honor of having and holding that space for, and teaching them how to step into their identity and to take their voice back, that they're going to impact so many lives. They're going to break the chain in their generation and on their bloodline. And so each soul counts. It's not, oh, it's just this one, or I only have two of this. Like, no, that person's going to go and they can multiply themselves and their children, and then their sisters and brothers, and those that are willing to do the work. You know, that's the big part. Those that are willing to say, yes, I'm willing to do the work. And like you said, break this chain. This chain, it's a prison.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody's voice is taken, that's really an attack on their identity. And so you and I could probably talk for hours about this because it's just such a
I
deep
just, you know,
passion.
and when I often ask the question, like, what would you be doing? You talk about the soul goal, right? And it's like that purpose, that thing that you should be doing, really be doing. If you were to chuck out all of your excuses and your justifications, and I say, what would you be doing if money didn't matter? Money was no object. You won the lottery, and the things that come out of people's mouths, it's just like, and then you have to say, well, why not? Why not? Like, why aren't you doing that now? Like, how
Absolutely.
would that impact the world if you were to just step into your power and make that happen, instead of just going into that job every day that you hate, feeling all of that bitterness and regret? The number one regret of the dying is the things that you didn't do. You don't want to get to that deathbed and realize that there was this whole life that you should have lived, and you let it go. You let it go to your excuses and to your fears.
You know, it's just such a huge part. I sit and think about a lot of conversations I've had, Claire, and the emphasis that are wired into school systems, corporations, of putting an emphasis on people's weaknesses. And so even when I think about the education system and the grades and the point systems and the emphasis, okay, good job for getting a good grade, but you need to get that C up. You need to get that D up. And that doesn't mean that you don't strive to do better, but if the emphasis is always on what you're not doing right, it just shrinks you back, and it's a constant reminder that you're not enough.
Yeah.
And so I
and
completely
that
agree.
shows up, right? Like, I have people coming to me, and it's like, you know, and again, the online thing, the visibility is such a good example, feeling like they can't, and also self-sabotaging their
Oh,
own success. So, you know, not taking the action, not doing the work, not going all in the strategies, because deep down somewhere they don't feel like they can create or maintain. Often it's maintain. You know, they have this fear that if they hit success, they don't have it in them to maintain that success. And so
yeah.
they're self-sabotaging themselves, their businesses, and it all comes down to, and we think of trauma as these big incidences in our life, you know, like maybe a rape or an attack or a crash or a loss. And yet it's these little memories that seem insignificant, that when we were children, they overwhelmed us emotionally. And
Yeah.
right there in that overwhelm, the brain takes meaning, right? Applies meaning. This is pain. And
Yeah.
fear is the anticipation of pain. So your brain is going to take you away from pain and direct you towards pleasure every single time, even if that is sabotaging your success. And so we have to work with the brain. We have to biohack those emotions, right?
Absolutely.
To be able to really step into our power.
It's crucial. Can you educate the audience about trauma healing and break down kind of the negative stigmas associated with mental health from your experience?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so when I was growing up, I had stigma around emotions, you know, like growing up with a mum who there was so much, negative association around being down or being up because she had bipolar. So it's like, for me, it was like, well, you have to somehow stay there in the middle. You cannot like go up or down. It's like, this is bad, right? Look at everybody responding badly. She's on pills, she's in hospital, and so I felt like this stigma around moving emotions. And so I tried not to have emotions. But the thing is about emotions, they're energy in motion. So they have to move. And when you don't move them, they get really stuck and they start to eat you alive from the inside. And because in today's present world, we're human doings, we're so busy, it's so fast paced, we aren't moving those emotions. We aren't feeling our emotions. We aren't understanding the wisdom in those emotions. We aren't seeing that our emotions are actually our superpower. If we can understand the messages in our emotions, we can change things in our life so fast. But what we do is we push them down. And there's so many people pushing these emotions down and they can't go anywhere. And so this is where we're seeing, depression and anxiety. It's something like 284 million people or something across the world suffer with anxiety. And myself, I ended up in this chronic anxiety, 14 years of chronic anxiety that I could not shift until I discovered biohacking. And at first it was biohacking, physical biohacking, until I started to write my book and realized that by going into these old memories, because I had to write about them, I had to write them down, I was able to immerse myself in those experiences and see them from another perception.
Okay.
And in doing this, I actually started to feel something different about what had gone on. I would realize that my dad wasn't this ogre that wanted to hurt me. He was a broken man dealing with his own stress and his own heartbreak, and the fact that he was a full-time carer and a full-time carer for my mum and balancing that with full-time job, right?
Yes.
And I started to see that the world wasn't necessarily as bad and as scary and as my mum pictured it to me, and that she had her own problems. And so this is where Life Through a Lens, the title of the book, came. It's like you can see things one way, but there's so many other ways that it could actually be the truth. And we have to find the truth. And so in so dramatically changing the feeling of my experiences, I started to show up in completely different ways, because I realized I was rewiring my brain. I was assuring the brain that there wasn't these things to fear, and it was enabling powerful action in my life. And I wanted to do something with this. I knew that I'd had trauma. I knew that, my deepest trauma, I thought was my deepest trauma. I was raped in 2004, and I felt so much different about that experience. I felt like I'd healed from that experience writing the book, and I wanted to do this for other people. And so it wasn't actually until this year, right up the beginning of this year, when I joined a coaching program and I was introduced to somebody who uses a very specific technique for trauma healing, which is called E4. And I started to learn about this technique. I started to apply this technique. I realized that actually, yes, I had trauma in the rape, but the underlying trauma was worse from my childhood. And
Yeah.
that actually, you know, the feeling, the meaning that I'd had in that rape, that I'm powerless,
Mhm.
was just a confirmation of me already believing I was powerless from all
Yeah.
those experiences as a child where I felt powerless, right? So I started to peel back the onion layers and heal on a much deeper level. And I decided to train in this technique so I could use it for other people. So I know now that technique is powerful. It's what I use in my coaching. You can heal trauma really fast.
Yeah.
But I also know, and I also teach, that we should be working with our emotions every single day. We should be listening to them. They should be our guide as to how we spend our time. You know, if you feel something, react to it or respond to it. Don't react to it, respond to it, and listen to what it's got to say.
That's it. What, you know, 100%. And I I don't want to say I think the consequence of ignoring them is the emotion retaliates against you. It's like a retaliation, like, okay, you're not going to listen to me. And then the complication is the depression, the anxiety, um, ailments, physical afflictions, dealing with sickness and disease. And it's all connected. And I know for years in the new world of medicine, they were trying to deal with everything, like compartmentalize everything. And it's like, no, it all works together. And it's crucial. Education is crucial. You have to educate yourself. You don't have to remain broken.
Yeah,
That's
you
an
do.
option. You don't have to, and it's going to look different for everybody. You move at your pace, but there is hope. There is definitely hope, and that is really what we want to encourage our listeners to understand, that regardless of your story and the pain and the depths of the trauma, there's healing. Healing is possible. Joy, to feel joy again, and vibrancy, and to truly love your life is possible.
And it is your story, right? It's like people shy away from their stories. They're ashamed of their stories, but your success lies in your story because your wisdom is in your story. And
Yeah.
if you can take the emotion away from that story, then you're left with this wisdom that you can take out into your world and into the worlds of others. You know, like I say to people, if you have this soul goal and you're broken, like if you've got your scars and underneath there's just rotting flesh and they're you know eating away at you, then you're this candle of hope that you haven't set a light to.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these people that could learn from you, that could be inspired by you, that could be motivated by you, saved by you, they don't see you because you've not set a light to that candle. And so we
Right.
have to set a light to that candle. We have to heal. We have to leverage our personal stories, take that wisdom and show people that there is hope, that there's a path, that there's a way. You know, like I just feel so strongly about that.
I love that analogy. That's really,
Mm.
really powerful. Light your candle. It's huge. It is huge. And stop minimizing your story. You know, if you've made it this far, in spite of what you've been through, somebody needs to hear your story.
Yeah.
And so, as we look at the climate of the world, dealing with COVID, dealing with racial injustices, even the attack against women for centuries. I heard a man make a comment about 2 weeks ago that women used to be you being a woman was a pre-existing condition. And hearing it like that, I said, wow, and he was talking about historically how men viewed women as a pre-existing condition. And so, as I mentioned all of these things, why would you suggest people get coaching, therapy, counseling, the necessity of it, and really break the cycle of getting caught up in the stigmas of trying to be strong and prideful and I don't need all that. That's for the weak. You know, that whole twisted mentality. What would you say to somebody that wrestles with that? And especially with the climate of the world right now.
Well, COVID it's a manifestation of the collective consciousness, right? It is a representation of the need to break that chain of people, you know, just carrying on and just, you know, like it stopped all of us in our tracks. And you know what it showed us? Everybody has these excuses. I can't step into my power because of my financial situation. I can't step into my power because I can't leave my job. I can't step into my power because I can't, like, excuse after excuse after excuse.
Yep.
In one day, the entire world turned on its head.
Yeah.
And if that is not proof that you can change anything, whole governmental systems had to change. Businesses had to transform the way that they worked in a matter of days to be able to stay afloat, remote working. It is so powerful proof that you can change anything. You've just got to decide. And our world needs you to decide. You need you to decide. Because if you go, you can ask that question: if I'm lying on my deathbed, do I have regrets? So if COVID taught us anything, right, it's like the whole world changed in a day. So if we're making those excuses of, I can't change my situation because of my finances. I can't change my situation because I'm in a job. I can't change my situation because of my spouse, because of my partner, because of my children. It's like, look to COVID and look to what it showed could change, and change in an instant. Businesses had to completely transform. Government systems had to change. All that has to change for you is to decide that it's your time now to leave that baggage behind, to let go of that anchor that keeps you in limbo between your past, your present, and your future. Your power is in the present. Your power is to step into right now and take the opportunity of coaching that's going to help you to shift forward, that's going to help you to see the blind spots that you don't see, and to understand why you're stuck where you are, and to be able to help you to really live that life, like the name of your podcast, live a life that you love every single day.
Absolutely. That was beautifully said, Claire. I couldn't have said it any better. It was beautifully, beautifully said. So for our audience, where can we find you? Where can they find you and hook up with Claire and start stepping into their power?
I would love to gift every single one of you on this, listening to this, watching this, what I call the Soul Goal Kit. And it's going to take you into a little bit of subconscious reprogramming, and it's going to help you to really step into your power, start stepping into your power. And so I love hanging out on Instagram. I would love you to come and follow my profile. And I also put heaps of value up on there as well. And so I'm at CW_full_circle. And you can get that Soul Goal Kit at the link in my bio.
Excellent information. And to our audience, we will have all of her information attached to the streaming of the podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. Claire, I want to have you back to continue to unpack some more in this area. It's just such a need. And I think education is powerful. And the more we educate our listeners, the more I believe people will be more compelled to take some steps that they need to really change the course of their life. And so thank you again so much for your time. You hang in there, mama of 3. You're doing a beautiful job. I'm not there with you or seeing it, but you're doing it. We celebrate that today. And so thank you again so much for being a part of Loving Your Life. We have enjoyed all of the wisdom nuggets that you have dropped. You all take it, pack it, look at yourself and begin to make a decision, because you do have the power to choose to go another course. So thank you again so much, Claire. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so for those of you, you can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, YouTube, all the podcast outlets. Thank you all again so much for listening. Bless you. Wow. Thank you so much, Claire. Tremendous time with you this morning. 6 a.m. her time, 9 p.m. our time. Just, the sacrifices she took to hop on and have a conversation with us this morning. She dropped a lot of wisdom nuggets. My favorite is the power is in the present. Such a crucial nugget. And I hope that you sit with that today, tomorrow, the weeks ahead, and identify, okay, what power can I tap into now?
Because a lot of times we get so focused on the past, and not that the past isn't relevant, because it is part of your story, so you don't ignore that. But is the past, does it have you changed back there? Or are you like embracing your past and your story and now being empowered in the present? Clare, thank you so much for all of the wisdom nuggets that you dropped and giving us a snapshot of your story and your journey. We know that that you had to go through some stuff in order to drop the wisdom that you did today. And so we want to thank you for that. As she conveyed at the end of the interview, you guys go check out her Instagram page. Get involved, check out her kit, and do your work. Because why? Life is worth loving. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Loving Your Life. Thank you. God bless.